Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Chapter 11 video. I'm going to try and get through this rather quickly. It's all about the technology that fraud examiners can use. Hopefully some of it is pretty basic and you already know it. Identifying the graphics that we can use. Those are just some of the key points to think about in this chapter. So we know that there is more and more data being generated every day. Fraud examiners, as well as auditors and all accountants, are trying to wrap our head around the idea of big data. And using data analytics is important to our profession. But if we don't have good data, garbage in, garbage out, the information that we get out of the data isn't going to be good as well. In the forensic area, we want to make sure we have data integrity. So that means that the data hasn't been manipulated or corrupted, and that the system used to create the data has high integrity, because if we don't have integrity of our data, then we can't use it. I know you've had a number of accounting classes that have talked about internal controls. So one particular control that's vital to establishing integrity of our data is the information processing control. So hopefully you covered these controls in your AIS class, but essentially we might need an IT audit to help identify risks and controls related to that IT environment in the entity, so that we can be assured that we have high data integrity. So here's a couple of tools that your textbook has given you. I've never used either of these, but there's Roadmaster and EnCase. Basically, these are Roadmaster is a portable computer forensic lab that can be used to acquire and analyze electronic data, preview and image hard drives, remove and erase stored files and programs from the hard drive. EnCase can be used to investigate and analyze data in multiple platforms, identify information despite being hidden or cloaked or deleted, and manage large volumes of computer evidence. So these are two things that we can use to help us gather that digital evidence. So some of the evidence, the digital evidence we're concerned with is deleted files, deleted emails, deleted data, and how we can recover or restore this information. So deleted files, they're not necessarily deleted until your hard drive has been maybe reimaged or partitioned. So being able to find those deleted files. Similar with our deleted emails. So there could be emails that are stored in maybe a hidden file, and each folder is going to be a separate file. So we can have some compaction to identify or recover some deleted emails. Deleted data, we might need a more sophisticated approach to find some deleted data to restore lost files. Could be a little bit more challenging. If we stop writing to the drive, we would increase the probability that we could recover that data. If they're in a place with high security or privacy settings, the chance of restoring files is non-existent. So that makes it difficult. And we may need to do manual restoration, but there is a high cost to that. So we may want to weigh the cost to that benefit. So we would start with a targeted approach. So in some circumstances, an initial big data examination will lead to large numbers of anomalies. So we're trying to identify anomalies and then, look into why these anomalies happened. But if we have a lot of those, those large number of exceptions, it might be made more problematic than helpful. So in those circumstances, we have three different things that we can do to help correct it if we have a number of anomalies. So the first one is to narrow our criteria by defining the characteristic of interest that we're concerned with in the data and considering those anomalies. Second, we could break the population into subgroups. That's stratifying and looking for anomalies in this group rather than the entire population, because one stratified group may be popping as an anomaly. But if you took that group by itself, they wouldn't be considered an anomaly. And we may need to change techniques to one that is more suited to the data that we have. So ETL is extract, transform, load. And that's the process of getting the data from its original source, transforming the data into a usable format, and then loading it into our software to be analyzed. So this analysis can include a number of different things, including what we see here. So sorting would help us to identify if maybe we have some pre-numbered documents and there's something out of order. Joining files. So if we have files stored in multiple locations, we can join them and use data from multiple files. Looking for duplications, ratio analysis, horizontal or vertical analysis. We can do various functions and recalculations. All of these things can be done in the transformation phase and through analyzing your data to help us identify some issues. So what tools can we use? So we can use Excel. Excel is the most highly used program out there for accountants. So that's one that we can use. We can filter, sort, create pivot tables, look for duplicates, use logic functions, conditional functions, find, replace. All of these things can help us in Excel. So if you don't have great Excel skills, I would highly recommend you get them. ACL or IDEA, they're both audit specific software that can be used very similar to Excel, with some more audit specific functions. Power BI and Alteryx, again, are other tools that are being more and more commonly used. And then Tableau can be used to create some of the graphics we will talk about. So speaking of graphics, most people get very overwhelmed when they have pages and pages and pages of data. So being able to put that into a nice little picture makes it a lot easier for people to understand. So as investigators, we will use these to help as an investigative tool to help us find issues because it's easier for us to identify them as well. Identify holes in our theory, and then finally communicate those findings to our end users. 3 specific types of graphics I want to show you and talk about are the association matrix, the link charts, flow diagrams, and timelines. So the first, the association matrix, this one is a little bit more basic than the one we'll look at next, but basically it's going to identify who is central to the investigation, so who kind of our key players are, and how they are linked to one another. So this is a good visual to show how everything kind of fits and what the big picture looks like. So here's an example of the book, the textbook that we had. So we have Stephanie owns the pizza shop. She's divorcing Jason. She has 2 employees, Mark and Richard, and we see that Jason is divorcing Stephanie. Jason is school friends with Mark. Jason is golf buddies with Richard. Stephanie is the owner and CEO who employs Mark and Richard. Mark is our suspected person. So we can see all of that information in our association matrix. Then we can take the link chart, which basically has a lot of the same information we saw in the association matrix, but gives us a little bit more detail to kind of describe those linkages. So here, let's take a look at this one. So same kind of idea as what we saw in the last one, but we have a lot more information here, or it's the same information, it's just a little bit clearer. So we have Stephanie, who's the owner and CEO. She is divorcing Jason. Jason has 2 friends, Mark, who's the treasurer and accounting manager, and Richard, who is our general store manager. Richard is managing the region that has 15 stores. These stores are the ones with fraud. And then we have 39 stores that don't have fraud. So again, it just is providing us with the same information we saw on that association matrix. It just gives us a little different view or a little bit more detail. Then we have flow diagrams. So flow diagrams are going to be used to analyze the movement of events, activities, or commodities. So not just the people, but kind of the what. So here's an example of that. So we have various transactions, then we have the documentation of those transactions, the journal entry, how they get put in the general ledger, and then that general ledger is used to prepare financial statements and tax returns. So there's nothing really about the people, but it's more of what's going on with the transaction and the documents. And then the last one is our timeline. So a timeline just gives us a chronological order of events. You should be fairly familiar with that. So we have, 1980 through 2014, and here's when all of the key events in our transaction took place. So to create these various graphics, 2 different softwares to be aware of, Visio, that can be used. I use that a lot when I was in grad school for creating flowcharts. I haven't used it much since then, but Tableau is the big one. Tableau is used to create a whole bunch of different visuals. A lot of them you can still do in Excel. You can do a pivot chart that will look very similar to something you could get out of Tableau, but Tableau is kind of the premier visualization tool that we have out there. We also might have some case management software to help us manage our case. So 2 in particular are the Analyst Notebook and LexisNexis Case Map. And it helps to create your flow to flow the chain of events and what needs to happen to move the case forward. Organizes our case in a meaningful way, presents all of the, puts all of the evidence into one place. So this is another software out there for use. So that is all I have for us today on chapter 11. Again, the biggest things that I want you to remember are those different types of charts and being able to, prepare those and understanding how they're important. That's all I've got for you this week. Have a great day. I'll see you next week.